Okay, so let us continue for B1. So nahinto siya. Pasensya na. Okay, so in language model, just remember that in this model or in this approach, we use literature, or with the help of the literature, it serves as a channel of learning and English proficiency. So here, class, we use language, or no, we use literature for us not just to gain information or to have the cultural background, cultural information about a certain topic or a text, but we are using our literature for us to improve our English proficiency and to improve someone's usage of language. Okay po? So, sana naintindihan natin yon. Next po. Wait lang ha. Ayan. So, for linguistic practice use in mechanistic way provides a series of language activities orchestrated by the teacher. So, in using the language model, we could incorporate or allow them, the students, to read aloud, so that will help, or that would help them to improve their pronunciation skills, not just that, but also the enunciation, proper facing, and build their ability to the correctness of the spelling. Tama po? Okay, so based on Carter, okay, Carter on 1988, the language-based approach helps students to focus attention on the way as to how the language in. Okay, so the language may not just use in a word form, feeding and feeding information, but also will help our students to improve and be creative and creating in using the different language form. So balikan natin guys, no? So sabi dito, for linguistic practice, it use mechanistic way and provide series of language activities orchestrated by the teacher. So always remember po na in language model, no, we are using literature as a tool of teaching language. So as we all know, in literature, we could observe that the words that there are used there is not having the surface meaning, but they have this connotative meaning wherein base to, ayan, so sabi po, ulitin natin, sabi po ni Carter in 1988, the language based on approach helps students to focus attention on the way to know the language in. Kaya po yung language, no, may not be used as a word or as giving information, feeding to them kung ano yung tungkol doon sa literature, but also it helps us to help our students also improve and be creative in creating and using different language form. And based on Lazaro 1993, see literary text as a resource for language practice through series of language activities and information. So rather than studying literature for the purpose of acquiring facts and information. So the language model also class enables learner to assess a text in a systematic and methodical systematic way in order to exemplify specific linguistic features. For example, the literal and the figurative language, direct and indirect speech. Okay? So in literature class, we all know that we have this denotation and the connotation, wherein when we say denotation, that is the literal meaning of the word. While when we say connotation naman po, it is the figurative speech or the figurative or the deeper meaning of the word. Okay. So with the help of the language model, itong model na tinatakal natin or pinag-aaralan natin, we can discover other linguistic features more than the normal or the usual vocabularies that we are using. So here in language model, we are not just learning for the cause of knowing or acquiring facts and information, but also we are helped to know on or discover other linguistic features rather than the usual vocabularies na na-encounter natin at ginagamit natin whenever we are speaking to someone or engaging in a communication. Tama po? So let us continue. It also aims to be more learner-centered. So kung ang cultural model po, it is an input from the teacher. When we say language model naman po, it aims to be a learner-centered. So why? Because we allow our students to pay attention to the usage of language in the text. So the meaning, increasing of general awareness also of the student with regards to English language. So attention to the way of language is used, meaning an increased general awareness of English. It can choose to focus on the general grammar and vocabulary or use of stylistic analysis. Tama? So ano po ang ibig sabihin nito? Because we can use literary text where it could help us analyze the general grammar. Okay po? Kasi 'di ba, like the short story, kung mapapansin po natin yung short stories, kung mapapansin natin siya, short stories use correctness in grammar. Tama ba? Kasi usually ang mga nagbabasa nun is mga students na nasa lower year or nasa lower education. Okay? And vocabulary and usage of style of text and art of literature is very low and demands a correctness of not just grammar but also in the way of speaking and the context po. Tama? Okay, so that is language model. So let us move on. So we also have the reductive approach. So based on Carter and McRae, in 1996, it described this model as taking a reductive approach to literature, wherein the activities are disconnected from the literary goal and can be applied to any text. So in this approach class, we often imply this whenever we are going to use the text or the literature for other purposes. Like for example, we are going to use or to make a critic paper with regard some theory and belief, tapos gagamitin natin yung literature to gain information or to show what is the difference, what is the connection of the theory to that specific language also and the literature. Okay po? So let's move on. So here in stylistic analysis, close study of the linguistic features of the text are possible. And also, it enables our students to make meaningful interpretation of the text and aims to help learners read and study literature more competently. So we have stylistic analysis class wherein it is used in reductive approach. So how? Sabi dito, when we say stylistic analysis class, it helps the student interpret the text and understand in deeper way with the help of the analysis. So it calls the stylistics in the first place for B1 because we use different ways of critique and approach to understand the text. So before on your subject on once you nung 3B1 pa po kayo, meron kayong subject na tawag doon literary criticism. Tama ba ako? Ayun, na kung saan yung subject na yon or yung curriculum na yon, it helps you understand specific text or literature with the help of different forms of critics. Tama po? So here in stylistic analysis, with the use of this one, and with the help of the reductive approach, which is under the language model, we could identify or understand and merely appreciate everything about the language used in a specific text. Okay, so we have now the personal growth model. When we say personal growth model, so it is outlined by Carter and Long in 1991. So it attempts to bridge the cultural and language model. It focuses on the particular use of language in a text and placing it in a specific cultural context. So this comes between the culture and the language model. So based on the second definition or second content, attempts to bridge the cultural and language model. So when we say bridging, connecting into each other to help a person to have or to grow in areas of learning. Okay, so because when we say personal growth model, it is more on building holistic individual And ano ba to? That attempts to help a person informed of different matters that enable them to grow in knowledge and in truth. So let's move on. So when we say personal growth helps learners develop knowledge of ideas and language. So it is a content and formal schemata through different themes and topics. So you cannot help yourself understand a certain topic if you do not know the language or understand the language being used. So always remember that when we say personal growth model, we enable our student to bridge or to connect the cultural language or no, the cultural model and the language model for the growth of the knowledge of a person. Okay, so let's continue. It seeks the opportunity for students to relate and respond to the themes and issues by making a connection to their lives. So our purpose, listen to this, our purpose of teaching literature inside the class is not just to give them information, not feeding them information, not just how will they be fluent in the language, but the solely purpose of teaching literature is to enable our students to relate on it. Tama? Apply it, and the learning will be applied or seen on their personal life rather than or more than the pleasure they gain in reading the text. Understand? So the function relates to the theories on reading, emphasize the interaction of the reader with the text. So the text itself has no meaning, provides direction for the readers, go construct meaning from the reader's own experiences. So here, we could help our students to share the experience, grow in knowing the experience of others aligned with the text, and build themselves in good application of the text. So in personal growth model, there is a need of students' personal engagement with the reading of the literary text. Okay, it also focuses, or the students should focus on the use of literature as a resource and not on the study of literature. So how could we do this in teaching? Okay, so in personal growth class, this model, it aims to infuse the continuous and appreciation of the literary text. So help your student class to engage and continuously love and appreciate the literary text. Also, how? Help the learners to achieve an engagement with the reading and literary text. What else? Encourage the learner to enjoy and love literature beyond the classroom as mentioned, and motivate them and enliven the students in their literature class. So help them also in selecting appealing works where they can respond linguistically and emotionally, no? And the process of reading, make sure that it is enjoyable, responsive, and the individual and collective experiences at all. So that is based on Carter and Long on 1991, okay, page 16. Okay, let's continue. So we have the last one, which is the integrated model. Dito tayo magtatapos. So when we say integrated model class, it is based on Duff and Maley on 1990. And main reasons for integrating these elements are the following. We have the linguistic, excuse me, methodological, and motivational. So when we say integrated model, we are using different approach here. We have the linguistic, methodological, no, and we have the motivational, enable for our student to be adaptive with the text or the literature. So what is linguistic? Okay, so when we say linguistically approach, by using a wide range of authentic text, we introduce learners to a very wide range of styles, registers, and text types at many levels of differences. Okay, so when we say linguistically, this is something in connection with the language. We're in integrated model. We allow our students to learn in the process of reading and analyzing the text in linguistically manner. So ibig sabihin po, it helps our student also not just to learn the language but also the correctness of the styles, registers, and text types. Tama? 'Di ba? Kaya po tayo pag nagturo tayo, make sure you are also able or you are reading different books to apply this in the process of learning. Most especially if you're going to teach literature, hindi po tayo makakapagturo ng literature. We cannot share a specific literature to a student appealing to them what do you feel or how do you feel if you do not allow them to know such. Tama? Okay? Kaya po kapag tayo nagturo ng literature, hayaan natin ang mga students natin na magbasa, ma-experience nila, and then whenever they have question, raise, ma'am, sino po yung characters? Bakit po ganito yung character? What happened to this and that? And so on. You should be explaining it. Okay? And make sure that when they ask question in English or the text is in English, of course, your English teachers answer it properly in a language manner wherein they could be or they could connect everything. Okay? Because you know how to connect them linguistically and to use the language properly. Next, we have methodologically. Literary discourse allows readers to process the reading. For example, we have the use of schema and strategies for intensive and extensive reading. Okay? So here, because based on the approach that we had earlier, we have known that literature is open for a wider range of different interpretation and meaning. So, meaning to say po, with the use of this one, the methodologically approach in integrated model, we can have lot of strategies to get the meaning of the specific text. And lastly, which is applied to everyone, motivationally, literary texts prioritize the enjoyment of the readers or the reading. So when we say that, with the help of the text or the literature, it helps us improvise a way of enjoyment to the reader. Tama po? Yan naman ang usual po na na-attain ng mga reader or isa sa pinakamagandang function po ng literature. It helps the student to really learn in the process, not just learning but also enjoying. Kaya motivate your students, mga anak nyo, no, sa mga mama dyan, na instead na nabababad po ang mga estudyante at saka anak natin sa social media, pagbasahin natin sila ng books, kapag sila may book sa school, ahead of time, papasa na natin. And ano pa ba? Allow them also to alam mo yon, mababad po sa kakabasa ng mga informative text, mga books, like kahit short stories lang. Kasi po, ang toxic ng paligid, TikTok, social media, lahat. Kaya po maganda po i-prioritize natin sila. I-prioritize natin yung health nila and at the same time, their learnings more than their enjoyment. Pero wag naman KJ, sometimes they let us give them time but prioritize the learning process of our students and our future children. Tama po? Okay, so that's all for B1. I hope you learned something today. So that are the different models or the different strategies that you could use in the learning process or teaching the literature in our class. So for me, if I would be asked now, what is the most proficient way of teaching literature to our class? Actually, all of this one, but I choose the cultural model. Diba? Kasi in cultural model, nandun na yung makaka-relate tayo. And at the same time, one of the best help of literature for me is that it helps me gain the knowledge of other people na wala ako. Tama? Okay. Kaya kung makakapagbasa tayo ng mga books, hindi lang natin nakikita yung mga character but also nakikilala natin lalo yung author. Tama po? Okay, so that is my personal view to that. But language, kasi yung language, yung language model, parang given na siya kahit cultural model yung ginagamit natin. Tama ba? Kasi hindi lang tayo natututo to know their cultural backgrounds, but also we used to learn on the language that they are using. Okay? Okay po? So here integrated, nadagdagan ng motivational, nadagdagan ng methodological, and we also have the linguistically approach. Okay? All of them help to help the student in the learning process. Okay? Excuse me. So thank you so much for listening, everyone, and God bless your weekends and pray always. Okay? So bye-bye po. Thank you so much for listening. And if you have question, paki-PM lang po si Ma'am Sheena. Bye-bye, everyone.